Hello, my little goblins. Today is going to be a different type of video, and this is just to prepare you guys for KASHTIRA coming out. And you might be asking yourselves, Big Meat Mike, Fatzoid, what are you going to do? How are you going to play against Cash? Well, I'm probably going to have to suffer because I got to make these videos, so I'm going to suffer regardless. But how can you survive this meta? Well, I'm going to talk about a few decks that you could play that actually has good chances against the deck. So first of all, this is a best of one format. So like if you're playing any deck, if you have a strong going first end board, you could have a chance of just beating them outright. I am gonna say this: since KASHTIRA can easily fit Dimension Shifter in their deck, I think decks that don't get absolutely annihilated by D Shifter will have a better shot at obviously doing well. But even then, D Shifter being in the deck isn't the end all be all, but it's just something to keep in mind. So that means like decks like Exo Sister, Flonderies, really. There's a few decks that like they just don't care about D Shifter, so those decks will be pretty good into this format. But I want to talk about some decks that could be good overall. I think personally that decks that don't use their normal summon will be especially good into this meta. Because if you're going second, yes, you might have to open up one of your like breakers, like a Kaiju, Lava Golem, Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse. But if you're running a deck that doesn't need their normal summon, you could run Lava Golems, and Lava Golems are going to be a really good way of outing Arise Heart and the other KASHTIRA, the Shangri-La era. So that's going to be very, very strong. And decks that can do that currently pretty easily, Makonko obviously. There's some Pendulum decks. One standing out is Valence. Valence does not need their normal summon whatsoever. And they actually OTK pretty easily. So I actually think that's a really underrated. The problem with Valence is if they keep their Shangri-La on the field, you are screwed. Because they just lock out your pen zone and then GG, have fun. But if you open the Lava Golem, it's not going to matter. You just Lava Golem their monsters. GG, bye bye. Now, there's other decks that could be very strong that doesn't rely on Lava Golem. I know I said that decks that are going to be weak to D Shifter could actually experience some issues in this meta. Well, I think Mathmech is actually another really good option here because Mathmech has very good bridges to their with Small World to Kaijus, and Mathmechs technically Mathmechs do not need they don't need their normal summon. Technically, they kind of do because they need a normal summon diameter, but sometimes if they open good enough, they can kind of play around it and not normal summon. But they could search as Kaiju the field, and then actually go for an OTK because everyone knows Mathmech does a really good OTK with Firewall Dragon or with Access Code if you're going the traditional route. The only issue I have with Mathmech is the fact that they're a little bit weak to, or pretty weak to Nibiru. And Nibiru is going to be running in a lot of decks, which gets me to my other point, which is Spright. Spright is, I think, going to be really, really good because this Gishki variant coming out is going to be nuts. And on top of that, Spright will make it so when your opponent is running Nibiru, they're pretty much going to be running a dead card in their hand. Like, your opponent's just automatically going to have a dead card. And then they get to set up multiple negates if they go first, multiple interruptions. It's going to be really annoying for them to deal with. Even with Kaijus, I feel like it's still going to be annoying to deal with. So yeah, I think Spright is going to be good. And Spright's pretty good at breaking boards too. And they have a very good OTK package. The problem is right now is their main deck is pretty hindering. With Blue going to 2, Jack going to 1. They lost access to a lot of the Angler plays because Beaver was going to 1. So they did get hit a lot. But I think it got hit a lot because it was anticipated that Spright was going to be particularly strong as well. They probably want to push more packs. So, it should be interesting, but I do think Spright is going to be very good in this meta. So right now, I think Makonko is going to be good. I think the decks that don't rely on getting banished, like Flonderies, the Exo Sister, I think Stun's going to be good, obviously, going first. I think you're going to see a lot of stun decks, unfortunately. Some trap decks could be really good and really oppressive if they're going first with floodgates and stuff like that. Could really hinder person playing. Skill drain obviously going to be a good one. But I think overall there's certain deck like Makonko and I think Valence are actually, I think Valence is kind of underrated right now. But mainly because I think a lot of people don't like playing that type of deck. People really hate on the pendulum decks, but I actually think they have a good out to a lot of the stuff, especially since they run Small World, they run Lava Golem, and they don't need their normal summon. Like these are all like good attributes the deck has. And they do a pretty good job OTKing, especially with big monsters. They Lava Golem, they send it back, they bounce it, and then they deal 3k just with that. They have good burn damage. Plus, some of these decks that can also utilize like Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, like playing that in their deck with ease is also going to be very, very helpful. I also think like Bestial Dragon Link and Branded Despia, even though those decks do get annihilated by having like a banish effect on the field, if you look at the data with tournaments with KASHTIRA, those decks actually perform like pretty decent still in those metas. Now it could be a piloting issue, like the pilots are really good, so it could be that, or it could be like if you open your answers, Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, you just play through it, you just annihilate them, and once you get up on them on board, you either OTK them easily or it's hard for them to come back. So it's one of those two. I'm not 100% sure, but the data was a little strange, to be honest, that seeing Dragon Link and Branded Despia do well, considering especially Dragon Link has a really hard time against D-Shifter. So it was kind of surprising to see like it doing that well in that meta. So yeah, I think the biggest thing to take out of this video is play what you like still. Play what you enjoy. Yes, you might enjoy KASHTIRA, then play that. But for the most part, if you're trying to be competitive, trying to hit those in the Master 1 rank, or trying to like win tournaments and stuff like that, I think the important thing is to just keep in mind what your opponent's deck, like what the majority of the field's going to be, and then what the majority of the field that people think it's going to be. And this sounds like kind of like I'm speaking in like tongues right now, but when your opponent, when people are thinking, oh, KASHTIRA meta is going to come out, I'm going to counter it with this deck, people don't prepare for that. So when they're playing ladder, they're going to be playing a lot of these cards that counter one deck, but then gets absolutely annihilated by this other deck. And sometimes that ends up becoming the meta. I think KASHTIRA will be the meta. I think it's gonna be another tier limit situation. Tier limit's gonna stomp them out. But I'm just saying there could be a deck that rises up that makes a lot of your cards dead. Like think of Spright. Like you're gonna be running these Nibiru's, Book of Moons. I mean, Book of Moon has its uses against Spright. A lot of the Spright monsters are Link monsters too, so like kind of dead against in that regard. So I think it's going to be interesting, and plus they're going to have the Gishki negates too, which they didn't have access to before. So it will be I mean, I'm kind of curious on how it's going to play out. I just wanted to make this video to give people like what I was thinking about what the meta is going to be. Let me know. I want my comments to be almost like a discussion board, what you guys think is going to be really strong into this meta, because I'm kind of curious. It kind of gives me some ideas of what people might want to be seeing. And don't build some troll decks down there. Don't be saying, hey, Fatsoid, I want to see Gimmick Puppet. And I'm like, I don't want to see Gimmick Puppet. You know, Toby, I don't want to see Gimmick Puppet. Stop posting about Gimmick Puppet. Like, come on. No, but seriously, I think it would be a good idea to see what people want their heads at. Because, like, I'll be honest, I was looking through, like, tournament data and stuff like that, and, like, a lot of decks have done stuff in KASHTIRA. I mean, KASHTIRA is overwhelmingly the majority in the older tournaments. But I don't think we're gonna ever see like a KASHTIRA that's gonna be this strong. Like everything's gonna be maxed out besides the field spell, which is gonna be pretty gnarly. So I'm kind of interested. It's gonna be interesting to see. I'm gonna be playing it tonight probably, but you're gonna be seeing a video for the deck by Tuesday if you're watching this on Monday. So hope you guys are ready for that. I'll tell you if the stomping was as bad as you think it was gonna be. So, all right, have some fun. Think about what I said and let me know down in the comments. Also, join the Discord. Maybe you can let me know in the Discord. All right, links down below. Bye bye.